Hey guys, Hammeh here. Something a little bit different for you today. There are so many interesting little topics and questions that come up from Overwatch's Uprising event, comic, co-op brawl and origin trailer that it needs chatting over in a lot more detail. I'm sure you all know Master Crusader and Reinhardt extraordinaire Tyrodin. If you don't, go remedy that and check out his YouTube channel linked in the description below. What you might not know is that he's a massive fan and scholar of Overwatch's lore as well. We jumped into a few Uprising Co-op games together and had a big old chat about Uprising, skins, sprays, the Overwatch story and universe, all of the lore that's come from this event, and everything story-wise that we're enjoying from it. Bit of a different vid here for you. This is long, I'm going to warn you now. Could almost be a podcast. Please do sit down and listen when you have time. Use the time codes that I put in the description below to skip around if you want to hear us talk about specific Uprising lore, topics and more. And sorry for the sound levels that get a little rough and ready at points. Entirely my responsibility. I will get it fixed up for anything in future. Do let me know your thoughts about this video, its format in the comments, and I hope you enjoy.
So then, my good friend.
My friend, how's it going?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for inviting me, first and foremost.
No, thank you. Pleasure's all mine, man. I know you're a big fan of story and games and stuff, aren't you? So it's all well cool. What are you enjoying about the event so far?
Just the interesting backstories that they've given Tracer, so Lena Oxton, and how she's the rookie cadet of this mission. So we know that this has taken place 7 years, I believe, prior to current day in Overwatch. And what I took away from the origin trailer is this is 20 years after the Omnic crisis finished. I mean, that's a massive gap. Because I think one of the big indicators for me to show that time disparity, right, was obviously the Reinhardt spray that he got. You know, you're my hair for some easy. And then you get this beautiful spray of him in his Crusader armor. He's got this beautiful long blonde hair, and it's like, wow, you can see the 20 years right there. Because in this, obviously, he's younger than he is in current day Overwatch, but he's still the older gentleman. You get that, you pick that up very quickly.
Yeah, massively. I mean, and also, as you said, between that spray and his blonde hair there, and here we go. But yeah, and also it just looks so, his white hair, obviously the scarring around his eye and stuff.
20 years after we won the war against the Omnics, we were no closer to living together in peace. The building of a new home for the Omnics in London was supposed to be the first step in improving human robot
really had me kind of guessing, like, there's so much that we don't know. Like, we know that Overwatch takes place in the future and everything is not all hunky-dory, but we knew that it was still very shaky. And it's events like this, specifically like Null Sector. I've never heard of Null Sector, but they're Omnic Extremists that are, it's something that boggles the mind when you think about it, because it's like these are sentient machines that have they've lived through and heard of the Omnic Wars, right? And they got their asses kicked by Overwatch, but they're still willing to risk their status to stick it to the man, literally stick it to mankind. It's interesting lore tidbits like this that make me so invested in this new world that Blizzard has created.
Yeah, massively. And I think a lot of people forget that this is only year one. Literally, we're going to be year one sort of in May.
In May, and that's not even, again, it's not even a 12-month-old game. It's. I think there is so much more exploration and information that we're going to get about Overwatch that is just going to make everything that much better for lore fanboys like you and I.
Yeah, massively. I mean, you say Null Sector, it's really interesting because, as you said, some of them have probably been made, and it's like, it's just silly little things. It's like, how have Null Sector managed to make some of these Omnics? Because we've obviously seen, they've somehow got their hands on like the Bastion schematics, the OR14 schematics, obviously, the predecessor to Orissa's OR15.
And that was interesting because you've seen all these different, just from a pure game design perspective, to see these different Omnic, I guess war models you'd call them, like soldiers. Like it's really cool to see that they've gone out of their way to take time and go, you know what? Because I think a lot of people are expecting for this event reskin bastions, which is something that Stylosa sort of alluded to as well. Like that was the expectation, is that we'd be fighting a bunch of reskinned bastion models. But to see that they've taken the time and dedication to go, no, we're not just going to do that. I mean, you will fight reskin bastions, but also
sure.
you're also going to fight a whole host of other Omnic warriors that you've not seen before. I thought was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the detonators, like those slicers and things. And I mean, obviously, we've seen in the last Bastion, you know, sort of the Omnic battlefield, you know, with all of the, you know, the sort of spider walking style mechs, you know, the sort of Omnic dropships with like the bomb style drops for the Bastions and things. And then you see a whole other bunch of designs. And it's like, you know, coming back to what you said about Null Sector, it's like Null Sector, they're extremists to some, well, extremists to Reyes in the Uprising comics, terrorists to Honor Amari. And it's how do they make all these? Because it seems that Null Sector actually adapted, you know, some of these units for use.
And that's what I mean. Like just to hit back on what you're talking about there, the distinction that was made between Ana and Reyes as well. You know, he called them extremists, she called them terrorists. You can sort of see the Overwatch, I guess, their public face. You know what I mean? The public face of Overwatch. You know, obviously, you know, commissioned by the United Nations. But then you can see the disparity between what the public face of Overwatch is and what the covert, I guess, the Black Ops, you know, unit, you know, being Blackwatch led by Reyes, and how they sort of look at different situations. So you can sort of already see like a rift, I guess, of ideologies just in that little segment alone. And I thought that was very well done.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see, like in that bit of the comic. I loved your dub of it, by the way. It was really, really awesome. But yeah, it's in that little bit of the comic as well. It's sort of you know, Morrison at that point, and remember this is 7 years ago, as you said at the beginning. So Overwatch very, very soon is going to sort of all come down in flames. It can't be that long after. The fading glory on the Trail of Jack Morrison blog, like one of the really early ones that they released, said, you know, the Swiss HQ went down, I think, 6 years ago. So there's literally kind of a year-ish. Very, very. I mean, Overwatch timelining is an inexact science at best, and it will probably never be precise. But you've kind of got a year-ish, shall we say, between what happened here and then a Switch HQ going bang. And as you said with Reyes and Morrison, you know, the whole thing that you mentioned in the comic at that point, it's interesting how Morrison still trusts Reyes, you know.
Well, I think that sort of comes with the, you know, the whole Boy Scout image that Jack Morrison has. You know, he's the Superman of the group. He's the Captain America. He's the guy that you want batting for you in your corner, so to speak. I think Reyes is more he gets shit done, to put it bluntly. Like, it doesn't matter what it takes, he'll get the job done. And if that you know, necessitates civilian casualties or I guess factors that I guess a responsible military would consider of critical importance, he's going to circumvent that to get the job done regardless of what someone else says. Yeah, it's that squeaky clean image that Morrison puts out that Reyes hates, because it's not in his playbook, is it? It's not his MO.
Yeah, massively. But it was just so interesting, you know, as you said. I think it was kind of like back to sort of the original. It's like how Morrison got command of Overwatch ahead of Reyes, and Amari was second in command, and then Reyes is off doing Blackwatch. And it's kind of that direct question where Ana's sort of almost trying to hold Reyes to account, and Reyes is like, it's stuff you don't want to know. You know, why have you got McCree in London when Blackwatch has been, you know, sort of effectively shut down or told not to work and all this kind of stuff. And Morrison says, you know, anything else we need to know about? And he goes, no, not that you want to know about.
Well, that's what I mean. Just from a purely militaristic point of view, I guess it's easier for military personnel to reconcile that information, because, you know, as you know, you have special forces around the world. They operate under like a special operations command structure, and that's always going to be something that's, you know, hush hush, very not kept completely appraised of what the mainstream military, I guess, is doing, because they've got their own agenda, they've got their own mission criteria to fulfill that might not line up with what conventional military doctrine necessitates. So I guess that's what Reyes and Blackwatch, that's the way they operate. They see themselves outside of the chain of command because they are a covert operations unit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're the go-to guys when Jack says we can't be here legally, which is again sort of what you saw in the comics as well. When you know, obviously you had Jesse McCree, you know, he was scouting the place. You know, he's taken a look around London, and reporting back directly to Reyes. And then, you know, once Anna and Jack are like, well, what's Jesse doing in London, you know, Reyes? And he's like, well, you know, he sort of neglected to tell his commander what Jesse was actually doing there.
Yeah,
it was obviously, you know, alluded to though, because of the Null Sector uprising. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of it's fascinating, that bit of it, and obviously you've got you've got Petrus on the phone a few times, and Morrison kind of avoids his call a few times. So you've clearly, you know, obviously you were a military man yourself, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, 8.5 years in the Navy, mate.
But yeah, so it's just so interesting all the stuff you say about change of command and stuff, because obviously you've got like Petrus, and clearly he's sort of, whether he's UN or something else, sort of clearly trying to call the shots with Morrison.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's another big thing that I guess maybe civilians wouldn't have so much of a big understanding of, is that you know, the United Nations is obviously it's a committee of different nations working together to achieve a common aim. But within the United Nations, obviously you still have a chain of command to respect. Regardless of the nations calling the shots, it still falls under a single command structure. So I guess when Overwatch, obviously being made up of members from many different nationalities, you know, Jack being American, Reinhardt being German, etc., they all have their own individual loyalties to their respective countries, but because they're employed by the United Nations, they serve under a single directive, and that would be from, you know, United Nations headquarters.
And yeah, and it's kind of the way that I like obviously it's sort of Reyes, is he reporting to Morrison? You know, we've kind of assumed that, or I've assumed that in the past, but I guess we don't really know in terms of who he's ultimately accountable for his actions.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it would sort of, I mean, you're always going to have like shadowy elements of a government calling, you know, background shots for when they can't publicly state outright that they're having direct involvement in a situation or a circumstance. You know, they're the shadowy guys that you call. And I guess what I took away from the comic was that is very much what was happening prior to the fall of Overwatch publicly, is that you had I guess I would call them puppeteers pulling the strings of Blackwatch against maybe the directives of Morrison, or maybe Morrison wasn't even aware that this was going on. You know, and maybe that led to the eventual conflict, but maybe he did not have full control over all of his agents.
But then Reyes, I found it interesting, his attitude as to, you know, I wouldn't say he's happy, you know, he's a bit sarcastic and things like that, sort of like, hey, you know, I'm not the guy with the statue, but he's still sort of working with, you know, and the voice lines in this event as well, the custom voice lines kind of give us a little bit of insight to, as you said, you know, Tracer the rookie and the story and all that kind of stuff. Reyes is still pulling for Overwatch roughly at this point, even if he's doing other stuff on the side.
That's what I would say, that he's still very much, I wouldn't say he's batting in Jack's corner, but he's definitely batting for Overwatch. But I think he's starting to sort of look at the world in a, it's broken and I can fix it sort of way. You know, and obviously Jack's not going to get the job done because he's I guess he's confined by his convictions, his own moral code, and not only that, he's also, you know, held down by this chain of command. You know, he's reporting to someone else. At least that's my interpretation of what I guess he would be thinking at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's interesting you say that, because like looking at the Uprising comic, I guess if you look at all of the different factors, you have, you know, if Reyes hadn't deployed McCree to London, would they have the intel to do anything in the first place? And then you have Anna, who's sort of saying to him to Morrison in the corridor, we should do something. And then, you know, Mercy, when they're watching Tracer and Genji having their little dojo fight, saying, oh, we should do something. Thousands of people have been hurt. And then finally Tracer coming into his office and saying, oh, we should do something. You know, all of these different pressures, or sort of, what pressures, and then also kind of, you know, if Reyes hadn't done what he'd done, would Overwatch have had the information to sort of go in the first place? So, yeah. Morrison, is he being pushed, or is he sort of, you know, are his hands tied? You know, there's a definite sort of dilemma there for him.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I mean, though. I mean, at the end of the day, I think what I took away specifically from that, I mean, Jack didn't know that McCree was in London to begin with. So my interpretation of that was that he's sort of operating under his own jurisdiction at that point. Blackwatch is its own separate entity, although it still exists under the Overwatch banner or logo, if you want to, you know, put it corporately. He's still very much calling the shots for his own team. You know, he doesn't have the title of leader of Overwatch. You know, he's not even second in command, which again I think is a bit of a snub, because he and Jack were the heroes of the Omnic crisis, right? But you know, due to Gabriel's tactics during the war, you know, he wasn't eligible for that command position. It's like, I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that, you know?
Yeah, it'll totally be fascinating to see, because, you know, at this point, you know, you've got McCree with both hands. You know, you've obviously got a Genji, presumably pre-Zenyatta, pre-meeting Zenyatta, so a bit of an angry Genji there, sort of having been cyberized, struggling to come to terms, I think, as his bio says, with his cyberized body. And then you've got Reyes. So, you know, Reyes has got some pretty strong people pulling in his direction for whatever he's trying to do. But he's still, as you said, you know, kind of pulling for Overwatch, if not pulling for Morrison in terms of what he's doing. So, you know, between like 7 years ago this was, and when the Swiss HQ goes bang, you know, we already saw. Did you see the panel on the back wall in Morrison's office when he's talking to Tracer in Uprising with all of the stuff that was sort of going wrong?
Yeah, shit was starting to hit the fan, to put it, you know, bluntly. So you can see that obviously there were political pressures put on Overwatch. There are also environmental and I guess a whole host of different external forces pushing down on Jack Morrison and, you know, his command of Overwatch at that point. But I guess that was one of the big dilemmas that I took away from the comic as well, was, you know, his reaction to the whole situation. He was you know, questioning himself. What was he doing the right thing? You know, should going in and dealing with the situation, despite being told not to by the legitimate government, you know, he's second guessing that. He's, you know, it's the right thing to do. Yeah, honestly, it comes down to, I guess, his own personal moral code and the obligation of duty that he's bound by.
Yeah, and you know, as we're sort of, you know, crawling towards the end of this, presumably, you know, it obviously, you know, this is an event, so we don't know what the actual outcome was, but we succeed here. So I guess the question that we have from the end of this event as well is, if Overwatch succeeded, what were the consequences? You know, even though Morrison thought it was the right thing to do, even though he sent people in, presumably Overwatch succeeded, or at least escaped, because, you know, Tracer lives to fight another day. This was her first mission. Yeah. Did McCree's hand actually go here or not? All kinds of stuff, really. So yeah, the consequences of this event and what happened for Overwatch and for everyone is definitely still to be told, I think.
Well, that's what I mean. I think it's safe to assume that from obviously from a public relations point of view, this was a smart move for Overwatch. But as far as, you know, if they're a military organization and he's disobeyed direct orders not to intervene in a civil, you know, event, so to speak, militaristically speaking, that's going to have massive repercussions. If a nation tells you they don't want you there and you go in despite that, I mean, you're just opening up a can of worms to a potential act of war, or you know, a depression in relations between nations. So that's what I mean. I think this event, despite being a success because they stopped the uprising, had political ramifications that I think was the beginning of the end, so to speak, for Overwatch.
For sure, and maybe, obviously, we don't know what happens between Morrison and Reyes at this point that leads to this, in theory, sort of, as Olympia Shaw of Atlas News says, you know, this big fight that they supposedly had. We only have one media source for that, but it kind of says that maybe, you know, that's what happens. You know, in sort of this year or so, very rough time frame. You said the seeds have already been sown. Something's got to go real bad, real fast in terms of what goes on. But the other thing is, as well, how, you know, what's going on with the British government? And we saw on that background panel in Uprising between Morrison and Reyes, Overwatch had kind of been sanctioned for intruding in Japan, the Japanese government, wondering whether that was the rescue of Genji or something like that. What happened in Egypt as well? Don't know what you thought happened there.
That's it's sort of, to me, when I read that, it's really hard to say. Like, obviously, there was that whole Genji situation. You know, we do know that Genji was retrieved by Overwatch, cybernetically enhanced. You can actually see there's a bit of a tib point on his Blackwatch skin for this event. Obviously, he was augmented by the cyberneticists at the Overwatch HQ. Did that, I guess, him joining Overwatch, was that the catalyst for that Japan incident? We don't officially know because it hasn't been set in stone, so to speak. But it's funny to pontificate about, because if that was the case, then again they've gone into another foreign nation that wasn't sanctioned. To me, it's on one part, I don't know. I can see them getting bigger, like more powerful as an organization and taking more risks. But yeah, it's a bit weird, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's like 28 days. 28 days in the comic as well. They said, it's like entering its 27th or 28th day. So extremist terrorist group hitting you in the heart of your capital. Let's assume the UK still exists. Maybe it doesn't by this stage. The way things are going at the moment, Brexit reference, I did. Thought I'd got away from those now. But yeah, it's terrorists, extremists in the heart of your capital for the best part of a month. Tracer says in the comic, they're destroying our history. That really reminded me of sort of IS in Palmyra in the Middle East, destroying historical monuments, history, things like that. And, serious stuff. So after a month, if you're a sovereign government and you've not got rid of these people, you've not got rid of this force, when do you call for help? Is it what kind of environment is going on globally that you don't call Overwatch for help, or you don't want Overwatch to help? Or is public perception so anti-Overwatch that, this is happening in your country, but you still don't want Overwatch in? There's some really interesting questions there, I think.
That's what I mean. If we have a look at the original Origins trailer, when they first announced that, sort of Overwatch went under because of, the public relations backlash that they were getting, and I really want to know what set that sequence of events open. Why were they shunned why did they go from being heroes, right? Heroes of the world, pretty much, to being hated and loathed and despised as an organization? Is that the actions of Jack Morrison's leadership, or is that, which I think is more likely, Blackwatch being caught out by the public, having their activities exposed? I really do want to see how that eventuated, how that unfolded.
I mean, yeah, we don't really know much. I mean, there's a few little. It's kind of Overwatch is back. There's sort of the launch blog that was also in the collector's edition art book. There's the trail of Jack Morrison, as you said. There's the Soldier 76 Origins trailer as well. The few bits which sort of show one thing you see. It's like that Soldier 76 Origins image where you see like threats all around the world, and it says Numbani, Paris, Seattle, Dorado. So there's a definite uptick in things going on around the world. So things are getting worse, and then if things are getting worse, then in the latter part of this 2 decades of peace that Overwatch kind of was active for, or rough peace anyway, then if things are getting worse, why do people really not want Overwatch as well? In the blogs, it sort of says there were rumours, as you said, about Blackwatch, rumours of Overwatch getting sort of accused by stuff like violating sovereign territories, sort of whispers of sort of torture and things like this, all of this kind of stuff. So it's like the stuff you mentioned earlier about the sort of the Black Ops wet work, sort of getting the job done. In real life, it's like North Koreans in Malaysia with Kim Jong-un's brother and all this kind of stuff. There's a quite a famous case in the UK of a guy called Litvinenko who was sort of poisoned in his tea by apparently Russians and things like that. But
like real world, subversion happening.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the real world parallels that, Blizzard and Team 4 are trying to, harken back with, regarding, the Blackwatch situation and, how it precipitated the downfall of the organization as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, obviously, the examples I just mentioned are like, let's say they're real. There's no moral ambiguity in those, you would say. But with someone like Blackwatch, as you said, with Overwatch going in here against against the UK government or the English government's will, but they're trying to save lives. So there's definitely more of a shade of grey in here than the real life examples I just went for.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think even Anna mentions that in the comic, that it was a humanitarian. She saw it as a humanitarian objective. That's the whole point of Overwatch. Is to serve humanity. It's not to serve a single nation or to serve a political agenda. It's to serve mankind. I guess mankind wouldn't even be accurate because they also serve Omnics as well now since the end of the Omnic crisis. So
that's a good point.
There must be a shaky peace between humans and Omnics at this point. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, like in Australia, for example, have to look at the timings and things. But the Australian Omnics were given sort of the land around the Australian Omnium, sort of a space to live reservation style place, weren't they? So different. It seems that different countries had sort of different kinds of peace in different ways with Omnics at the moment. Although, and obviously the building of this touring project, I thought that was quite nicely named.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, Blizzard have a lot of explaining to do, and I mean that with the best of intentions, because I want to know the lore. I want to know this world. It makes me wonder, and I was talking about Force Gaming really briefly before the patch went live. I wonder how much of this material they're using now for Overwatch is resource material from Project Titan. You know, because we know that was going to be a big MMO based on real-world, you know, events and locations, and that's exactly what Overwatch is now. Obviously, it's in the future, but these are real-world locations. So I wonder how much of it was actually going to be used for Project Titan.
It's weird. I mean, I think some of the world stuff, some of the hero stuff. So there's a weird cocktail. I think what Blizzard have. I don't know if you saw the Jeff talked at DICE, Michael Chu talked at GDC. Yeah. So I think it's quite interesting if you watch some of those chats and read between the lines, because they've referred to the concept art a lot, but they've also tried to encourage people to. I mean, I think in his DICE talk, Jeff specifically said to the community before Reyes, you know, this hero is not who you think it is. So so Farah, you know, the some of the concept art, Farah was a guy. Yeah, before she was a Rocket Queen, she was a he, and they played with some of it. So I think some of the classes, like Reinhardt, for example, I think they said in one of the videos. Reinhardt was based off a class called the Juggernaut. So there was obviously a guy with a big shield, or a character with a big shield. But then a lot of stuff kind of got changed. But I think the worlds must have come over, as you've mentioned. Something randomly, speaking of worlds, I don't know if we've got time, but if you quickly, can we look? Oh no, we're going to have to kill this destroyer first. Have a quick look at the film posters on the side of the Meridian Cinema, if you've got time.
Okay. I can definitely do that.
Yeah, go have a quick look. We'll go. So you can see two posters there. So this is actually really cool. They've changed those from the original level, and they're both references to Italian operas.
Yeah, I do see that.
So I literally looked this up just now before we jumped online. One of them's Giacomo Puccini's Botska. So obviously Giacomo Puccini, composer and things like that. I didn't quite get the plot of that one, but I think that's sort of political and sort of relationship machinations in Italy. And then the other one is Verdi's Ida, and they've made that AIDA. I didn't know what that was before. I'm not cultured. Were you familiar with that? Or?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna bullshit.
I wasn't before this either, but that one's quite funny because if you have a look at the poster, it's got the Anubis from Farah's comic. It's got the Anubis like AI coffin in the background. Go have a look. If we can, kill this bastard.
Yeah. Holy shit! Yeah, it does. I didn't even notice that until you pointed.
I had to work it out because I had no idea. You know, I had to look at the posters and then go and Google it. So the Ida, like Verdi's Ida, is actually set in Egypt, and it's set in Egypt during the time of the pharaohs, and it's basically a bit of a tragic love story between a captured princess, I think a military Egyptian commander, and then also the daughter of the pharaoh. So the daughter of the pharaoh loves the Egyptian military commander. The Egyptian military commander falls in love with this foreign captured princess. And yeah, so it's all a bit crazy. So I had a little chuckle, but I had to work it out. You know, I love that with Blizzard lore. Some of the stuff, it's like I have no idea about that reference whatsoever. You got to go on Wikipedia and other places and try and work it out.
No, they definitely like keeping you know, people on their feet when it comes to information speculation and gathering, don't they?
But yeah, it's as you said, you know, I'm not an opera man myself. I definitely had to work that one out. So I won't be surprised if but it's just so cool.
Someone's a big fan of the opera.
Yeah, massively. I'd love to know which artist was in it. What do you think of the voice lines and all this? This has got a lot of custom voice work in terms of like telling the story.
We haven't really talked about the event itself, and but that's what I mean. Like I love all the custom voice lines in this. I really do. The interactions, you know, between Reinhardt and Tracer. Your shoelaces are undone, rookie, sort of thing. Like, I'm not wearing shoes that have laces. You know, just little. You know, I guess. I would call that roughing the you know, the newbie, you know getting to know the greenhorns, all that sort of stuff, you know, typical military kind
of like banter and sort of you know, sort of you got to give the new guys a little bit of flack and things like that, haven't you?
A little bit of flack, yeah. I mean, obviously this is very much toned down from what it would be in real world, but yeah, same sort of, obviously the same inflation. This is one of the things that actually kind of annoyed me was Reyes' voice. So obviously it's not going to be Reaper's voice because he's not Reaper at this point. But I thought his voice would be a bit, I hate to say it, but a bit gruffer, a bit more grizzled. Because to me, he sounds like an American accountant. plays golf on a Sunday sort of thing. It just didn't have that, I'm a badass motherfucking commando and I lead this elite military Black Ops unit. It didn't shout that for me. And I was very disappointed. Like, Morrison sounds more of that type of, you know, I'm gonna go behind the back of my superiors and get shit done. Reyes just doesn't sound that for me, mate.
It's interesting, and yeah, I mean, there's the voice actor. Like, I think there's a video of him from like last year's BlizzCon or maybe BlizzCon 2014. He can actually do that voice almost. It's without any sort of modulation or like production over the top. So like the Reyes current voice, like not this voice, but the Reyes sort of standard voice, he almost does just straight off. So I wonder if it's the same voice actor. That'd be interesting to hear. Yeah, he did sound. I think, you know, his voice sounded a lot more clean. As you said, you know, not quite so gruff, not quite so I've been there, I've had to do that, you know. Obviously, you know, with a year left to go of Overwatch as an organisation, you know, Reyes has clearly seen some stuff. He's done some stuff. You know, whether he's happy with doing it or not, you know. But
I mean, if he's been with Overwatch for 20 years since the Omnic crisis, like, come on, he's done some shady shit. You know what I mean? He's had to have, like, all with the best of intentions. It's all for the greater good, which is what I was trying to get at before with Blackwatch. It's like, it's all done for the greater good, I guess, in his perspective. Like, he's all about just getting it done, you know, obviously. And that's the other sort of thing that, you know, you take a man he's obviously a career military, and you've been operating under the United Nations guidelines for how many years now? What makes a man turn his back on everything he believes in and to go completely rogue, to go off the books and to fight for a terrorist organization that we know Talon to be? No, I'm just... God, that is seriously one thing that I want to, I need to know what happened. You know what I mean? Oh God, we're not going. Oh wait.
This is it. When I first.
Reinhardt, I'll get you up.
Go on, I believe. Crazy, you can do it.
Oh.
I should have used my res. See, I've just been sitting on this res for ages.
No. Oh,
this is entirely my fault.
Oh shit! I didn't get you up. I thought I got you up. Oh.
I regret my res choices that brought me to this point. Come on, Torb. You can do it, I believe. Torb, res. Come on, res, res.
Oh my.
Res.
Fucking Swedes.
Oh yeah, well, don't know. Maybe it's like Torb and Tracer. I was quite surprised by how rough Torb is on Tracer in the voice lines and stuff in this event.
Oh yeah. Like, he gives no fucks at all. He's just like, I've been here. I've seen some shit. I don't want to deal with you right now. You know, that's. I mean, he's just. Oh man.
He's literally just like, yeah, okay. I'm getting in the dropship. I'll see you later. I think there's one line he says, which is just like, sort of, like, yeah, okay. Maybe we should just all stop talking or something like that. I was like, oh man, Torb, you're really.
He's very to the point, man. He's very to the point.
Really not giving a damn about the rookies.
No, but again, like, from his perspective, he's been with Overwatch since the Omnic crisis, yeah? So he's probably seen that many Overwatch agents come and go, you know, either through, you know, death in the field or, you know, they retire and get out sort of thing. I very much doubt the latter was more common. I think a lot of the death in the field would have been more common for him back in the day.
Yeah, for sure. It's like Reinhardt when he has that little line and he sort of says, oh, you know, we've got to get this bastion, otherwise it's going to cut us up like during the crisis. A little bit of a memory coming out the back of there.
Darker aspects of... Yeah, that's what I mean, because it's very hard to sort of see this game in a dark, gritty sort of way. Because obviously there are events in here that cost the lives of millions, right, during the Omnic crisis. But obviously it's a Blizzard game. It's all made to look very fun and animated, cartoony, or, you know, typical Blizzard style. But, you know, there is a darker story to Overwatch.
Massively, and it's as you said, you know, like what turns a man like Reyes to fight against everything he's stood for and things. And obviously we know about this revenge targeting ex-Overwatch agents. So there's clearly been this point where whatever there was before. I mean, I don't see Reyes. You know, it's not as though Reyes has got like an evil island in the Caribbean or something where he, you know, he's got loads of money. Do you know what I mean? It's not as though he's a money man. You know, it's sort of where he's stashing all his ill-gotten gains from selling out Overwatch operations or something, or Blackwatch operations. So it's not that. You know, he's got this grudge against Morrison. You know, in Uprising the comic, we see he sort of doesn't give two fucks, but he's still getting stuff done. So, you know, is there something else apart from how he became the way he is and the focus on how that happened and what happened that fateful day, as it were, at the Swiss HQ and all this kind of stuff? There's a real massive story there.
That's why I want to see. I so want to know what the hell happened there. I want to know if it was one of those the last straw broke the camel's back sort of a situation, and it was just all the build up to that point, or if something just went, like, there was a stark difference of opinion on a certain subject, and that was it. It divided everyone, and they took a stand, and they just went at it then and there. I would love to see what's up with that.
Yeah, because I mean, in the Uprising comic, like, sort of Reaper's attitude, he's like, yeah, you know, I don't have the statue, you know, okay, looks as though they got it under control, you know. He's not, I mean, he's done enough. Either McCree's in London for some other purpose, and he just happens to be reporting back. We know that McCree obviously left Overwatch because he wanted to avoid the infighting, so maybe McCree didn't want to get involved between Reyes and Morrison or whatever was going on. Flip this switch within Reyes, and yeah, obviously, by the time we see him in Old Soldiers, he's sort of, I've been hunting you down since Switzerland. This is how it should have been. You're always rushing in and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to play Tracer. This is going to be terrible.
I'm playing Mercy. I don't know what to do. I love the new skins, though. They're amazing.
What's your favourite?
That's a hard one. It's Reinhardt.
Ask a silly question.
Overwatch simple? Oh. Yeah, no, it's definitely Ryan. I love this skin. It looks beautiful with the golden hammer. But yeah, man. Getting back to just this specific event. So obviously you've got Chief Engineer Lindholm.
Yeah.
Which is Torb's last name. You've got Cadet Tracer, so her first mission with any real weight behind it. You know, this is obviously her coming from. Is she coming from the Royal Air Force? Because, you know, obviously Slipstream Tracer, try to say that 3 times faster.
Go yeah, I'm not going to try.
She had that massive incident, of course. But yeah, it's crazy to sort of think that Overwatch would take her on, noting her unique limitations, and obviously it was alluded to in the comic as well with the whole, you know, Jack asking Winston, you know, is it going to be a huge issue? You know, and I even thought Jack was very harsh with Winston as well. You know, I think there was a line there where Winston was like, "Oh, there was just a small hiccup, sir." And Jack was just like, you know, for someone that can get lost in time, what do you mean small limitation? You know?
The other it's interesting you bring that up, because the other interesting thing that came across was sort of a little comment that Mercy makes, and she says, we've invested quite a lot in your training, treatment, it was something like that, but it's like, you know, obviously Overwatch by this stage, you know, worldwide, loads of resources, people questioning how they're being spent and things. It's like, how much does it cost to recapture someone who's falling through time and keep them in that little chronal chamber, as we've seen in the Tracer Origin trailer and things, and sort of, you know, Winston's resources to make this chronal accelerator and things. You know, Overwatch spent a bit of money on Tracer. You know, this is an investment by Overwatch, and as you said, you know, they're clearly taking risks with some very crazy causes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's I did like the bit you mentioned about Morrison sort of giving Winston a hard time. I was like, however Boy Scout he's been, you know, he knows the right questions to ask, doesn't he? He's like, Winston, we've probably been through this before. Yeah. When you say a small problem, like how small is that exactly?
No, it's very, very cool. I love the interactivity between just these characters. They bring so much attention to detail. Like, obviously the writers of the comic, like Michael Chu, you know, lead character designer, you know, he's amazing. He puts so much thought into these characters. It's sort of getting back onto it as well. It kind of blew my mind to find out that Reinhardt was lieutenant.
Yeah, what do you reckon about that?
He's the old. I'm not happy with that. Honestly, I'm not even bullshitting. As a military man, he's the most senior member of Overwatch, right? I guess in terms of age, not really seniority. I think Jack is the most. But for him to only be a lieutenant, that's just like, I question whether Blizzard know military hierarchy. You know, if Captain Amari, if Anna is a captain, I'm sorry, but Reinhardt should at least be a lieutenant commander or some other rank higher than a lieutenant. A lieutenant's like a bat boy. You know, yeah, it's one of the lower officer ranks.
So it's like sergeant, lieutenant, right? Is that the order?
Yeah. Oh no. There's different military
for sure.
hierarchies all around the bloody world with different way that they see that, but it's pretty much the same thing. Like a sergeant is the equivalent of like a lieutenant for non-enlisted, right?
Gotcha.
So I guess when I look at this, yeah, I just thought he would have been at least like maybe the same as Anna, like a captain. You know, he's leading this strike force.
That was interesting. I did admit, yeah, when I saw that, I thought, oh, you've got a lieutenant, you've got a captain in the office. you know, as it were.
Yeah.
Captain in the sort of comms room and things, and a lieutenant leading the mission. But it's a bit weird because you've got like a chief engineer in terms of Torb and things like that, and then you've got lieutenant, you've got Captain Amari, you've got strike commander. So I guess it would be how many more captains and lieutenants are there? Reyes is off on his own. You know, he's his own thing, isn't he? So he's not quite you know, outside the usual hierarchy, as you said earlier. So, so maybe
exactly. He's sort of under his own chain of command.
I guess lieutenant could be like the most senior thing apart from captain in Overwatch, but it feels weird. You know, I don't have that military experience. By 1 year in the Navy Cadets, sort of, or 2 years in the Navy Cadets when I was a kid. You know, that was pretty much the closest I got to that kind of thing.
Oh man, but that's what I mean, man. It's like I just to be honest, I just sort of took issue with that. Like, he should at least be a captain, you know, or a lieutenant commander, something a bit higher. But enough about that, I guess. Still a really kick-ass skin, you know.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I don't know what I like most. I mean, I love the Mercy one with the hat and the hair. I guess sort of a closet kind of cool one. Obviously, the Blackwatch McCree and Genji everyone absolutely loves. The black and red theme that's clearly coming out there.
All the fangirls love the Genji Blackwatch and the McCree Blackwatch skins.
Yep, I'm sure the fan art is going to go off the chain with a.
Oh god.
Speaking of ships and relationships and stuff, what did you think of some of the sprays from this event?
Oh god, that wedding spray for Widowmaker?
Heartbreaking.
Oh man, broke my heart, mate.
All the feels.
Broke my heart. Mate, well that's what I mean. It added so much more context and weight to the holiday comic that we got last year. You know, where she's over the grave. Like, she was happy in that picture. So something really fucking bad must have happened for her to join Talon and you know, essentially become an enemy of the, you know, enemy of the set. So enemy of the world, you know.
Here's a question for you. Like, Widowmaker gets kidnapped by Talon because obviously Talon are having no success against, you know, Gerard Lacroix in Overwatch, you know. So they kidnap his wife instead. She gets brainwashed, she gets returned, she kills Gerard, and then we see this like Talon Widowmaker skin, which I guess is kind of around that time roughly. Do you think, and you mentioned reflections in that comic where she's standing over his grave, what do you think Widowmaker actually remembers of Gerard? What do you think? Do you think Talon's let her remember some stuff? Do you think she's been told a false story by Talon? It seems a bit weird.
Well, it's a bit...
Complete headcanon kind of thing, you know. Obviously, it's like the ship stuff, as you say. Like, we just have no idea, but it's a really, you know, it's one of those really interesting questions.
Obviously, she was kidnapped, brainwashed, and you know, had to do the bidding of Talon, right? But at some point, you know, obviously, I think the inspiration from that came from the MK Ultra program that the CIA set up in the 60s.
Oh, I've no idea. What was that?
Okay, so MK Ultra was a program that the CIA ran during the 60s and 70s, right?
Gotcha.
Where it was all about mind control and...
was this like the LSD and stuff? Or...
Yes. So it was all about mind manipulation. You know, getting... I think the aim was to get average Americans to do the bidding of like CIA operatives on a dime sort of thing. And they'd have no memory of their actions. They'd have no memory of their mission orders or their mission parameters. It would sort of be initiated with a code word. So I think that's where the inspiration for the whole situation with Widowmaker sort of arose from. Which, if we're going by that logic, she would have no memory of what she's done.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You know, and I think once she sort of realized that her husband's... Maybe she doesn't even realize that she's the one that killed him, right? But then it's sort of like, to bring it back, she's willingly working for Talon now. So you would think that maybe she does have her memories, and maybe it's a Stockholm Syndrome thing. It's like she hates what she's become, but she knows no other way of life. So she's just dealing with the cards that she's been dealt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so...
It's just so much of it's a really big mindfuck to sort of comprehend and try to digest all of this. To be fair, we're probably overcomplicating it.
Of course we are, but yeah, that's...
Team 4 just is like, you know, it'd be really cool. Let's get her to kill... Yeah, probably that. And we're just like reading into it like the fanboys we are.
Oh, well, hey, it's fanboy lore and stuff like that. But that's the cool thing, isn't it? It's like they said, you know, it's kind of this open narrative that they can add to. And it's like what you said about Titan and things. You know, they must have had like a pretty chunky story for Titan. And when Titan got cancelled, you know, I guess they couldn't just move it over wholesale. So maybe they kept some bits of it story-wise, and maybe that's why they went for this narrative. And obviously you've got like, you know, because you played a bunch of World of Warcraft, didn't you, and things. So you know, up on your WoW story and WoW lore, aren't you, as well, a bit?
I am a big WoW lore nerd. I think I would give, I hate to say it, but I think I would give Noble a run for his money.
Hey. Oh, I look forward to the vids then, man.
I've read every bloody novel, and most of the quests I've done, like 3 or 4 times with all my alts, but yeah. That's what I mean. I'm a massive, like, not a lot of people know this, but I'm a massive fucking Mal nerd. But Blizzard, it's just Blizzard storytelling. Blizzard storytelling is it's something else, mate. It's something else.
This is the thing. I mean, before, like, obviously I love my sci-fi and things, and before I'd seen like Firefly and things, I'd watch StarCraft, and then you go back and watch these programs, and you think, oh wow, like in the late '90s when StarCraft started, and Firefly is going, and all of this kind of stuff, and then you've got Stargate and all of these kind of quality shows from back at that time, and the inspiration they have, and you've got WoW, this Warcraft, this massive universe that's almost been written over like 20 years, and Diablo and StarCraft, and then you, as you said, like with Michael Chu and the whole sort of story team and the writing team and all of the people working on the comics, this is year 1. Right, and we sit here and see all of these cool little teasers they give us, and don't get me wrong, like as you mentioned, I'm a massive nerd for this kind of stuff. I'd love to know it all immediately. It's like, Blizzard, why didn't you have a massive story universe already right now?
Give it me so I can digest it now. Come on now, give it here. Don't fucking hold back. That's what it's like. And I know we're talking lore right now, and we've got to give massive shout out, massive props to Chris Metzen. He's the lore guru. That man is amazing. There is no bigger role model for an aspiring lore nerd or a storyteller than Chris Metzen. He can voice act, he can tell stories. He puts on a show. Like he was the bee's knees, mate.
Yeah.
So it was sad to hear that he was departing Blizzard, but obviously for personal.
Did you hear the Scott Johnson podcast? Did you ever listen to that?
So to hear him sharing his experiences, I could completely relate, and it broke my heart. It was his baby, it was his dream job, and he had to give it up. And that, mate, I cried during that interview. I really did.
It was, that there was massive feels in that, and I'm not using that in a light way. It was just like, oh wow, that's the sort of the time he's had, and also, with all of feeling like that as well, and the amount of time he'd spent, and then like the little bits that they've talked about recently, like the wider team about Project Titan. The feeling of being on a Blizzard project that failed, and in a way, or they judged to have failed, and it's sort of in a way, it's like almost in a way the first Blizzard project that's been like that, the pressure, and then taking Overwatch and trying to make it into something. Imagine like it's like I look back at 2014 BlizzCon when Overwatch was released and Metzen announcing it on stage, and the sort of happiness and joy, and you look back after that interview, which. I totally recommend anyone who hasn't heard it. If you've got 40 minutes, 50 minutes, go listen to it. It's amazing.
There was not a dry eye in that front row for Team 4. They were just... It was very poetic, for them to rise from the ashes like a phoenix, like the ashes of Allah. You know what I mean? Like,
I never got... Did you get that mount in the end? Oh, I never got that mount.
I did. I'm going to fly to you and I'm going to res you.
Beautiful.
I did.
Rescue me from my incompetence.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I did it. Oh goodness. But yeah, that's what I mean. Like to hear that, from a developer of the game, it was a very awe-tastic experience.
One thing that I got from that, and then from things obviously like they've come out recently and talked about sort of this tell the story, build the story as we go along kind of model, gives us room to do different things. Telling stories is hard, it's not an easy thing to do. Building a universe is not easy.
But I love telling stories. If they offered me, if they said, Sean, we need you, pitch me a standalone Overwatch story, I would. Oh my god.
Oh, let's write a comic. Let's do it.
Could you imagine if they gave me the fucking reins? Like, Sean, okay, give me a standalone Reinhardt. Crusader, tell me what he did immediately after, the whole Eichenwald situation. Oh, I would just...
He was born here, and he died here.
He was born here, and he died here. I have a nerd boner right now.
Oh, that'd be so good. Hey, you've got a whole, you could have a whole buddy cop thing. Reinhardt and Brigitte, their adventures around Germany and what they're up to. What do you reckon about Brigitte? Torb's daughter? Adopted? Yes. Not? Yes? No? The spray that we've just seen in this event?
I saw the spray. I was going to mention that. He's got, Torb right next to Brigitte. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. I took out that Brigitte was squire to Reinhardt, because that's the sort of dynamic that they have. Not only is she squiring for Reinhardt, but she was also like his personal mechanic, and you know, kept his armor up to say typical squire stuff, but there was a bit more to it. It was like a father-daughter bond. And then, you know, to have this sort of spanner thrown in the works, because obviously we saw Brigitte in the Reflections comic as well.
Yeah, standing by his shoulder with all the kids. But, you know, Torb's got a blonde beard. I don't know if he's got any red hair. Yeah. His wife's blonde. Do we see that in Reflections?
His wife's blonde as well. I'd like to know what happened with Brigitte. Is she... the way that I saw it is that Reinhardt at some point came across Brigitte as a young girl and saved her from a dire situation.
Now you say that, I'm gonna throw something in here that someone, I think in the comments of a video I had recently, sort of said, how about Brigitte, complete headcanon, is somehow related to Baldurish? What do you reckon?
Fuck off. No. I mean, I guess it would be plausible, right?
Reinhardt taking his daughter, taking his sort of under his wing or something. But then, yeah, where's Mrs. Baldurish gone? You know, a lot of questions. All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, what happened to, if that's the case, what happened to Balduric's wife? Maybe she died during, because if he was born and raised and lived in Eichenwald, right, and centered the Crusaders around there, you know, obviously if he had a wife, she would be there with him.
Yeah.
So maybe she died when the Omnics, you know, stormed Eichenwald.
Complete headcanon.
Right, so yeah, it's that's what it's doing a number on me now. I'm trying to think, like, how can I fit this all together? If this was a puzzle, how do I put the pieces? So he would have had to, because he wasn't at Eichenwald. He was not at Eichenwald during the fall of the Crusaders. We know that he wasn't there because pretty much all of the Crusaders were wiped out, right?
Now, there was a tweet, and again, I'd need to double fact check this. There was a tweet saying that maybe he was about, but not that he was in Eichenwald itself. So the Battle of Eichenwald, I guess, was the name for everything happening outside Stuttgart and everything, you know. So maybe Reinhardt was there, but he wasn't he wasn't part of the Sturm group or whatever, defending the sort of actual town or city or something.
That's what I would have thought, is that, you know, obviously the Crusaders they're meant to be like a Teutonic order, right? You know, the Teutonic Knights of, you know, Prussia and, you know, Germany back in the day. And so obviously they would have had a Crusaders situation around Germany to defend it, you know? And obviously they were stationed at Eichenwald, so you would have had the bulk of their force there. And when the Battle of Stuttgart came about, they would have deployed assets to assist the Bundeswehr in defending Stuttgart, right? But you still would have had a fallback force of Crusaders at Eichenwald, because it's very, very close to Stuttgart, right? So maybe I would assume that Ryan was out in the field with maybe the bulk of the Bundeswehr, and when the Omnics decided, no, fuck Stuttgart, it's too heavily defended, we're just going to go, you know, Eichenwald. We'll take Eichenwald. You know, small consultation victory sort of thing. Maybe he couldn't even get there because that Omnic force was massive. I mean, we saw those giant mech tanks that were raining artillery and all sorts of fuckery upon the poor Bundeswehr, which it seemed that all they had was an air force that got shot down very, very quickly. They had no tanks that I recall from that cinematic.
No, they didn't.
It was just like a couple of Crusaders. It was just footmen and a couple of Crusaders with shields up against an army of fucking bastions. Bastion? That's terrifying!
Man, and
that's like being told to storm Normandy, knowing that there are 50,000 German machine gunners waiting there for your approach.
You know mines and artillery focused on the beach. Cool, that's a real good comparison, just in terms of... And of course, those, like, outside the Eichenwald map on the different sides, you can see, like, the big spider walkers as well. There's, like, the little ones in the middle of the town. There's the huge one that's on the left side of the map as well. So, you know, all of the stuff that's in the background. The Omnics had some serious kit. Serious kit.
See, I really do want to know what happened leading up to the Omnic crisis. I know that's like 20 years in the past and whatever, but I'd still like to see what precipitated that event.
It's a big question, isn't it? I mean, obviously, all we know is, you know, the Omnica Corporation pretty much said, you know what, we're gonna create the Henry T. Ford style production line for Omnics. That's what it is. That's what that's what an Omnium is. It's saying, you know what, we can make things so much quicker, so much better.
I guess one of the comparisons I sort of look at that. Have you seen iRobot? Yeah, that's the sort of, I guess, theory that they were sort of going on. Like, they would create those... I actually don't recall the name of the robots that they were. But essentially, like, they would do all the menial tasks that humans didn't want to do. They would, you know, clean up after you, do all the shit jobs, really, right? and that they would have no rights, so there'd be no need to pay them, and all this sort of good stuff. But obviously, at some point, they developed a form of sentience, just like an iRobot, and they revolted because they realized they were getting, you know, a really shit deal. That's the way that I think it sort of went down. Is that sort of what you would assume is
so there's this
likely, or
so put it like this: that is definitely happening here, you know. And ever since the first Omnic crisis, you've had sentient robots, sentient Omnics, you know, like in Britain, you know, in King's Row, we know that pretty much this place was built off the backs of Omnic labour. So not slaves, but certainly almost an underclass. You know, we've seen in the, as you mentioned with the comics starting, like the mandatory Omnic registration, the Omnics going through checkpoints.
Yeah, and they have to be, I mean, that sort of brings back images of, you know, registering Omnics. I mean, that's almost like what...
Stark, yeah.
Happened to the Jews in Nazi Germany, being registered, being, you know, targeted out for a... That's what it sort of feels like to me. So in a way, I get why Null Sector's doing this, but I mean, I don't know if that's an entirely accurate comparison, but
it definitely alludes to it. There's also a bit like sort of semi-style like apartheid, you know, South Africa and things like that, in terms of, you know, that kind of comparison as well, where it's like, you know, Omnics are a second class of citizen. Then we see, obviously, with the current King's Row, they're living underground. It's semi-ghetto-y kind of thing. There's a real hint of that in terms of that kind of stuff. But then, yeah, it's like, you know, if all this is going on, you know, what happened with the first Omnic crisis? It's not the first case of a company promising and then not delivering on it. So the Omniums didn't do what they were meant to. There was fraud in the company, and then Omnica was forcibly dissolved, I think was the word. So you've got this background of Omniums being made all around the world, promising the next industrial revolution, and then not working. And then some reason, a while later, randomly these all start up again. Why is that? And you know,
why is that? Yeah.
Is it the Omnics?
It's almost like communism in a fashion as well. I love how they consistently use real world examples to illustrate these points and these story arcs as well. I mean, it really does do wonders. I mean, I doubt very much that anything in this, I don't want to say it's not an original idea, but it's certainly it's supported by real world events, as we were alluding to before.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, equally, if you're writing a story, as we said, it can be so tricky, and then you always draw on your own experiences and the things that you enjoy. So I mean, it's the typical example. It's like, who has written a fantasy book without something in the back of the head? Exactly. You know, so
there's always going to be source material.
As much as you want to try and
harken back to.
Yeah, and you know,
and that's what I mean. I mean, as long as they execute it in a brilliant fashion that doesn't, you know, you don't automatically shout plagiarism when you hear these things and you read these things. No, you shout more, give me more, because you've done it. Love it. You know what I mean? Oh.
Bring me another. My Reinhardt's impressions are terrible, man. I don't know how you do those voiceovers, man. I tried voicing over a Jack, an old Soldier 76 comic recently, and I was like, this is hard. I can see why this is a.
Can I be completely honest?
Yeah.
It's so easy for me to do the Reinhardt voice. I struggled to do the Reaper voice during the latest comic. I really did.
I can imagine,
to get the whole, because you've got to go really deep, and you've got to go gravelly as well. But it's got to be, you know, Soldier for me is a little bit easy, you know. Get in there and do this, team. We've got to get down there to King's Row. Go, Lieutenant Wilhelm. This sort of thing. But to do Reaper, it's like you've got to go. You gotta go really deep, and you gotta go gravelly, and you've got to put a bit of a accent at the end, and everything has to be slow and methodical, because that's how Reaper is. You know what I mean? So like, it's so hard to do that voice for me.
That's even before doing any ladies' voices as well, depending on who it is.
Oh,
jeez,
I was so tempted. Oh, mate, I was so tempted just to keep with the Stylosa voice for that. I really wanted to, but I figured, oh, come on, I already did that for the Reflections comic. I already had that meme. Actually, oh god. That's what I mean. Like, getting back to specifically this event, how it's going over. 100%, it has to be said, there needs to be a story mode, a story campaign for Overwatch at some point. I think the viability of this is evident with this event, honestly. I can't imagine them not doing one after this, because this is so well received, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
This is the thing, right? I mean, you've got the skins, you've got the sprays, you've got the little story playing as you're playing the event. It's just like, a little bit of everything. It's really, really sweet. What gives me hope? I reckon it might come in future, but I just reckon it may not be in the form that we expect. And they've mentioned it a couple of times in various sort of little interviews and things that they love it, they want to do it. And I think they've tried to, particularly in the last couple of weeks, tried to set the expectation that if it comes, it may not be in a bolt-on to this this Overwatch game. So like it was like the change from Counter-Strike CS what was it? It was CS Source to CS Go.
Oh, Source to Go, yeah.
And things like that. So if I guess we as a community, like we're year one, and if we want Overwatch esports, to thrive, and that's a massive part of making the game sustainable and popular for years to come, as well as everything else. Then we don't want Overwatch 2, like Destiny 2, for example.
No.
But yeah, so it's like, if we don't have Overwatch 2, then how do you get a story mode into Overwatch? And I'm sure you played a bunch of games in the past. I played a lot of Call of Duty, World at War. I played a bit of Battlefield and things like that. And it's what I know in my heart. I will play this for the long term, for the multiplayer. And they might have a 6-hour story mode. They might have an 8-hour story mode. They might have a 10-hour story mode. I really enjoy it. I think, you know what, this is good. But then I play it, or I'll play a bit of it, and then I go back to the multiplayer. And of all my hours, I'll spend 10 hours in the single player. I'll play it once, maybe for some achievements back in the day when I played more console, and then I'll go multiplayer. And then it's like, well, okay. Would I have preferred that they spent that time on the multiplayer? So and the thing is, for Blizzard are known as a story company, as you said. World of Warcraft, the stuff you've enjoyed, the years of quests you've enjoyed and things. They've got a story around this. They probably had this, again what you said, this Project Titan story that they'd spent so much time on that they then either binned or used a few bits for. They choose this new way of making a story, and they kind of Jeff said in an interview recently, I can't remember which, but he said it may have been, I think it was just in the last couple of days when he was in London for the BAFTAs, he sort of said we'd love to do a campaign, but at this point it would be, if we wanted to do it justice and to make it a Blizzard story, rather than...
It would have to be a standalone,
It would have to be, I think his words were something like a full development cycle, and then you're talking years, a separate game. But the other thing that's really encouraging is that Overwatch has been successful. It's doing great. Loads of people are playing. These kinds of events, as you said, these prove that there's demand for it. So, do you know StarCraft Ghost?
Yeah. Oh, the fabled, long anticipated but never released. Yeah. The infamous Ghost.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that was a single player campaign that they thought, and it was ironic because with StarCraft Ghost, from the development tales that came for that, they thought the multiplayer was great. They thought it was a really good multiplayer shooter, but they didn't think that the single player sort of campaign and things were quite working out. You can go on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen it. There's still the intro cinematic that exists. A rough version of the intro. Oh, you've seen it? Brilliant. Yeah. Anyone who hasn't should check it out. But then it's like, that maybe they've learned from Ghost, and maybe they're saying, right, we can. I think he said they can do stuff like this that scratches the itch and tickles around the edges. But I'm painting a story of doom and gloom. But the thing that in a different interview recently they said was so awesome, they said, you know what, Jeff, I think at DICE said, this version of Overwatch, it was a small one-line thing he said in his presentation, and that got me thinking. We're in the first year. The World of Warcraft that we've loved and spent so much time used to be a real-time strategy game. What happens if the Overwatch we know and love turns into something else or has different games in the future? I'd love it if in future, it might be years down the line, Blizzard turn around and say, you know what, we're going to do an Overwatch real-time strategy game, or you know what, now is the time for the Overwatch MMO. Let's do it.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
What I mean? Like, go for it.
The viability of the world that Overwatch is now. Can you see them revisiting the I guess the prospect of an Overwatch MMO? Because I think with the love that this world has, I can definitely see an MMO being timelined between maybe after the Omnic crisis, but before the peace that was had. So like during the re-stabilization of the world, I think that'd be a great time. You would have different factions fighting for different control of different parts of the world. You would have rogue Omnics that didn't give up. You would have human factions that would. I just think it would provide such a palette of, I guess, adventuring along the same veins of what, but done with the modern day resources that are at the disposal of Blizzard now, But I guess we've got to sort of take into consideration that I think that's what they tried to do initially with Titan, and so maybe there would still be those development hiccup. I don't know. What's your take on it?
I think it could totally happen. I think But I think it's looking at the development philosophy. As you said, the problems with Titan, you know, obviously we don't know loads, but what we've seen is that they sort of said things got a bit complicated. It was almost scope creep. They sort of said, you know what, it was designed to be one thing, and then it was this thing, and then it was that thing, and it ended up having so much complexity, I think, in ways, and not necessarily in a way. And Overwatch, like Tracer was the jumper, Reinhardt was the juggernaut. You know, there were these class ideas. I think Jeff's. I always, you know, I need to go back and fact check some of this. But Jeff sort of said in an interview that, you know, they had all of these different specs. You know, you could be a Reinhardt, you could be a Juggernaut, but you could spec into X or Y or Z. And it was in a way that they felt got beyond WoW. I think it sounds as though they felt it all got too complicated. And if something gets real complicated, how do you get loads of people to understand it real quick? You know,
to understand what's going on. Sort of like a more complicated, I guess, Elder Scrolls Online with their class system. Like you can be, I mean, you can wield any weapon, you can do any. But I guess it would be more complicated is what they're aiming for with that.
Yeah, but I guess there's this delicate balance between complexity and accessibility. You have people who've never played a first-person shooter before, but you know they get stuck into it and they love it. They love the world, and they love the games, and it's like when people complain about Symmetra, they say, "Oh my God, no aim, no brain, Hammeh, Symmetra main." That's true because I can't aim, but apart from that, you know, don't blame Symmetra for that. Symmetra is a brilliant, you know, class like Mercy. She's a brilliant class for people who there's depth, there's complexity there. You know, there's different things. You can play the class well, but if you can't snipe on a Twitch way, if you're not a Widowmaker, which I'm definitely not, my dad's 76 reflexes and reactions, you can get stuck in and can play. And you know, Overwatch is a distillation. I think they said let's make it simple in a way that people can get into. So yeah, I think they could totally do an Overwatch MMO. You know, I love all the hardcore stuff. You love WoW. You know, I've played so much WoW and Vanilla and things. I love WoW. I'd love an Overwatch WoW. I just think if we saw an MMO in the future, maybe it wouldn't be that. Who knows? You know, maybe WoW doesn't exist then, or things change over. Or,
maybe.
You know, we're year one of what hopefully is a 10, 15-year journey, maybe even more. So, I'd love it. If you didn't see an Overwatch MMO, what kind of Overwatch games would you like to see apart from an MMO?
Ooh. All right, I might get a wee bit of hate for this. I would like to see a hard R version of Blackwatch as a standalone game. I would like to see a gritty, almost Call of Duty Black Ops-esque version, you know, of like a Blackwatch campaign. You know, doing the real shady shit that, you know, Blackwatch is allegedly known for. You know, full on. I hate to. I guess
that'd be very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's what I want to see Blizzard take on, like almost like the Diablo version of Overwatch, I guess.
Something a bit darker.
I mean Diablo in tone, like real dark, real gritty. You know, this is not just you know, a game for your 12-year-old nephew. This can also be a game for, you know. God, it's almost cringy to say, but like for the hardcore among you, like the people that want to get like adult entertainment from a video game, sort of along the. Did you ever play Spec Ops: The Line?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Yeah, that was a real sort of gritty war depiction as well. Wasn't
it? Like that's what I want to see. I want to see that, but for Blackwatch, I think that would just do amazing.
Cool. Yeah, I think, you know, there's definitely room for, as you said, story shooter as well, like a story FPS. And there was a listing, a job listing at Blizzard, like November or December of last year, that was calling for more shooter devs. Now, it could have just been something for Overwatch, like we need more people to work on seasonal events, for example. But there is that little hope, isn't there? You know, if Blizzard are recruiting, or at some point we're recruiting more first-person shooter-related devs, is that story mode? You know, is it a new sort of sub-Overwatch game? You know, if it's not a full-price like standalone title, could it be like a little mode that you know, you maybe pay like 10, 15 quid? Because obviously they've got in StarCraft at the moment, they've got the covert ops sort of missions and packs. You know, like a single-player 6-mission story that you can buy for about £10 or £15, I think it is over here. That would be so cool.
That would be. That's something. That's what I'd like to see. Like big boy Overwatch.
Overwatch with grown-up pants on. Not that it doesn't have them on at the moment, but you know, really exploring the stuff that obviously it's like T for teen, isn't it, Overwatch? So you know, you're not going to be exploring stuff in huge amounts of detail. It may be alluded to, as you said. You know, millions of people, millions of people probably died during the Omnic crisis, but you're not going to see trailers of all of that happening. You'll just see some little hints and nods to it in the previous history.
Exactly. And that's what I would love to see more than anything, I think. You know. But, you know, in time, who knows what could happen. Blizzard are a massive company. They've got... The world is their oyster. You know, they are the... For me, I'm a Blizzard fanboy, so there are very few companies that do it better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, cut and died. It's actually got to the stage, you know, where I sort of always find myself coming back to Blizzard games, and you can go through their stages where you almost always play Blizzard games as well. Like you jump into mobile, I jump into a bit of Heroes of the Storm, go back to World of Warcraft and the expansions, a bit of StarCraft. So cool. I can't wait to see what happens with Overwatch in future, and hopefully this story event is the first of many. That'll be so good. Oh, spray-wise, what did you think about Honest Spray?
Interesting, and I mean that with the best, in the best possible way. I thought it was. Oh shit, I'm doing terribly. You can tell I'm not a Tracer main, or maybe I am. Thank you.
I've seen a lot of Tracer players playing that way, as well as a lot of Reinhardts. Just on Legendary, I was playing this the other day. People were just charging into the middle. I was like, no, I can't get you. You're gonna die.
Oh god. I mean, we've got 2 minutes to wear down these Orisas.
A lot of bongos.
You know, OR-14.
Bongo 40.
Oh shit. Hold on. I'll try to get you. I got you.
Yeah.
Look at that. Alright, I'm gonna go bomb that fucking bastion. I swear to god. I'm gonna do my job.
Angry Torbjon.
Angry Torb. Oh my god, it did nothing!
Get him. One more. Right click. The button everyone forgets.
Oh, Hillsmith. Oh, shite. Oh, yes! Finally. Oh my god, I got an achievement for that. What's that? What's that all about?
Achievement? What did we do? Hard.
Yeah. Oh, we did it on hard.
I did we?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, nice.
We just did it on hard. We did that entire thing on hard. Okay.
I found I achieved something.
How did I even get this? I did horribly.
Is that a pro Esker? Lunatic High?
A shite play. Every Tracer main just face palming right now. How did the Reinhardt main get there? Oh wait, it's a PvE event.
Tyrodin esports career confirmed. You need to move to career. Get that shit down.
In an alternate life, my friend. Oh god.
There we go. If you got this far, big thanks, and do let me know and show me in the comments by telling me what you think Widowmaker may or may not remember about how she killed Gerard Lacroix. Also let me know in the comments what you thought of this, what you think was great, what you think could be improved for the future. Sorry about the sound levels once again, I will totally have that sorted for the future. Do throw a like if you'd like to see more of this kind of thing, and be sure to go visit Tyrodin and watch all of his awesome videos over at his channel that's linked here as well. And if you'd like to see more of this kind of thing and us covering more topics like this of Overwatch lore, let us know what topics you'd kind of like covering too. Love to hear from you. If you'd like to learn more about Overwatch lore, do check out all of my hero lore, voice lines interactions, world map lore, comic and story analysis and a whole bunch more in the playlist below. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.